Debbie is a social worker. I've known her for many years, 20 years. Recently, I told Debbie that we are doing this workshop in Jersey City in partnership for Healthier Jersey City supporting, and we're excited about it. So she told me I have to tell you this experience that I had with a person who was worried about. She fresh graduate from college, a few years, and she used to run a youth group at a local church, and a group of volunteers would come there, they would participate in various activities of the church, do things for the church, and the fun activities, share experiences. But there was this one girl, Julie, 15-year-old, always talk about dark subjects, about death. Debbie was very concerned, but she didn't know what to do. It's kind of awkward. She didn't want to be intrusive. So she reached out to her pastor, what should I do? So he supported her idea about approaching Julie's mother. She went there, and fortunately she was one of those that wasn't offended about Debbie's concern about Julie. Flash forward 30 years later, Debbie is sitting in the salon. Lo and behold, the chair, 2 chairs away, the old woman is sitting. She said, "Oh, that's Julie's mom." So she went over and asked her, "How's Julie?" She said, "Julie's doing fine. She's married, has 2 children." What Debbie did that day probably saved Julie's life, not like you. I'm telling you the story to make an important point. If you don't take anything else, just take this, because I hear this too often at health fairs, not only from people who are non-physicians, people who are educated, people who are physicians, that we cannot prevent it. Somebody who wants to do it, they'll do it anyway. And you will hear a lot about it. That is a totally wrong notion. So suicide can be prevented. Every life is precious. We need to strive to save it. And preventing suicide is everybody's business. It's not just the mental health providers, everybody, teachers, brothers, sisters, professors, anybody and everybody. How common is it? I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics. You have Google to look at all the statistics. So I'll just give you a couple of points. One, that suicide causes more deaths than wars, homicides, and natural disasters combined. It causes more deaths than all the motor vehicle crashes. Every year, over 42,000 people die from suicide. It is a huge number. It certainly raises questions, and this has gone up from, it used to be 32,000 in the past 10 years, it's gone up, as Mr. O'Day said. So it raises question, is it really preventable? And it raises question in my mind too, when this report came out, and I think a couple of years ago, there have been efforts across the country to prevent suicide. GW Bridge, they put up this barrier 2007, and in Golden Gate Bridge in California was one of the initial one. They put the barriers up because there used to be a lot of suicide. That used to be called the suicide bridge. So yes, it can be prevented. And we have a lot of efforts being done. This is another thing that I want you to take home with you. We'll be giving you this card, note this number down. These are trained people, workers, 24/7. Anybody can call in crisis. And in fact, good news, recently FCC approved a proposal for a number, like a 911 number, but for suicide, the other one is like a mouthful, 1-800. It was just approved, and I think about 18 months or so, it should be released, the number will be 988. So look for that in a couple of years. Here is the New Jersey statistics. You see different colors. The dark blue are the rural areas, the distant. And as you can see, across the country, the suicide rates in rural areas tends to be higher. And experts have given several explanations for this. First, people are like far apart from each other. The closest physician may be a few hours away, who's already overburdened. lack of specialty care like mental health care availability, and abundance of guns, high possession of the gun rate in those areas. So, who can tell me what is the, nationally, where does New Jersey rank in the 50 states? First, second, third, or 50th in the rates of suicide? It's 49. Okay, that's great, right? 49. Now, but ask a person who has lost a loved one from suicide. They have a different perspective. This is statistic. Even though we rank 49th, it's equivalent to one death every 11 hours. And I have to thank Dr. Aparna Kalbach. He has done the research and has helped me with the numbers. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Suicide is a complex problem. There is no simple explanation. There is not just one way to prevent it. It is not a disease. It is a symptom, a deadly symptom of disease, disability, anguish, and despair. Problems are temporary. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. In that moment of anguish, people forget that the worst of the storms like Sandy are bound to pass, no matter how bad. Suicide is prevented if you can catch that person in that window, which usually lasts 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then do something at that time. Now, if you want to prevent, you need to identify it, you need to find it. So if you ask, you'll find out. Recently, I was staying at an Airbnb, and I was talking to the Taiwanese host, this very warm, hospitable host, and I was telling him about the workshop that we are doing. He said, I had two friends who had suicide in the family. One, he jumped from the building. That was attempted suicide, but he had life-changing injuries that he's living with now. The other one died after a breakup in the marriage. In fact, when he retired, as my Airbnb host, his physician asked him, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing okay." And next thing, he asked him something that he was taken up. He said, "Do you have thoughts of suicide?" And he said, now he appreciates that this person was diligent. He asked me. If you don't ask, you'll never find out. Like 50% of people who die by suicide, they were seen by a primary care physician within a month before the death. Had the physician asked, this could have been prevented. 90% of the people that die by suicide have untreated mental illness. As Mr. O'Day said, and Marianne said, that we need more mental health services. And one of the barriers is non-availability of adequate services. 80% of those who die by suicide, as I said, drop hints in the family. So the families can help the therapist and the doctors when they hear something, see something, speak up. I'm going to talk about what a psychiatrist does. I met one lady, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to read her mind." Psychiatrists don't read minds, and psychiatrists cannot predict suicides either. We do risk assessment. I tell you how many, I've had a few sleepless nights because you see a person who you think is suicidal, and then you think about hospitalizing them, and they are refusing. What do? You commit them. That destroys the treatment. So you kind of a dilemma what to do. You have to do what you think to save that life at that moment. So thank you. I think one time, right?